38% of Gen Z think that it's harder to build wealth than for their parents.
Yes, it's harder to buy a house. It's easier in regards to the environment of the market. It's easier to make it now than ever before.
You once said, if today I came to the U.S. with $92 in my pocket, I would still become a millionaire in 12 months.
Find a need, fill a need. Being a millionaire is a state of mind, not a state of account. The next thing is,
in 1986, Brian Buffini immigrated to the States with just $92 to his name. As one of America's top real estate agents and founder of the largest coaching firm in North America, Brian has redefined success, not just by what we earn, but by how we live.
44.8% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children. What do they have? This data is absolutely undeniable.
I'll say something controversial, which is,
Brian, I recently saw some data. 38% of Gen Z and millennials, we're going to shove those two generations together, think that it's harder to build wealth than for their parents. So let's start right out of the gate. When you hear that, are they right? Are they wrong? Why?
So I'm going to give you a yes and no answer.
Okay.
Yes, it's harder. Harder to buy a house. First-time buyer's house, they're 38 years of age. You know, I bought my first home at 22, and it was easier. It was easier because of the down payment requirements. It was easier because of the context of value. So it's harder in that regard. It's easier in regards to the environment of the market. The market is far bigger than it's ever been. It's easier to make it now, personally, than ever before. Work ethic is not quite what it was. People are looking for the quick, and we have the stats to back it up right there. Their online gambling is 3-1 in that age group for investing. Now, those are the people, if they invest, they make a fortune. But, and they do it over the long haul. But they want the quick fix. So they're long on the Lakers tonight.
Yeah.
As opposed to long on QQQ.
Yeah.
So they're missing out on that part. I also think, a touch of entitlement and a little bit weaker work ethic. I think we're right now, younger people are suffering from parents that took a lot of adversity away. And when they get an environment like this, like to me, like I tell my kids all the time, I got 6 kids in that age group. And I go, find something you love, get real good at it, and then beat the bushes, and you will win. You will win because the competition's not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more capital available than there ever was.
All right, so there's two things here. So harder to buy a house,
yeah,
but easier to actually make money.
Yes.
So if someone's listening, watching this, and they're in that age group, and they're going, this guy's talking out of both sides of his mouth here. Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but if it is easier to gain wealth, in other words, make more money, then this feels like the hurdle to buying the house is patience, which you touched on.
Yeah.
So I want to stay there. What do you think is culturally happening to drive all this quick fix, shortcut mentality? Because that's what it is.
Well, if you're asking me, I'll just give you my theory, right? So I'm a dad, and I have a coaching company, so I'll just give you what I think I know. All right, if that's all right. I grew up from the generation, my parents were like, there wasn't a lot of warm fuzzies. It was, get on with it. I brought you into this world. I'll take you out and make another one look just like you. That was my dad's affirmation. And he did. He had 6 kids. He could have replaced me easily. And so I would kid that with my kids, but not mean it, right? So I think we come from generations past that were tough, the greatest generation, the baby boomers, whatever, didn't express it, didn't have a therapist, maybe not all the skills they needed. And then they produce kids that are like, hey, the Gen Xers, I want to make sure I'm in touch with my kids' needs and so on and so forth. And so you and I are people who've become who we are because of the adversities we've faced in our life. And then the tendency is to remove all that adversity from the kids. And so that's the dynamic. And so the real deal is this, okay, honey, you can be a star and you can be present, you can be this, and we've pumped up our kids, and rightly so. But there's a price to pay. Like there's a cost to pay.
Yeah.
My kids have watched me as an entrepreneur put it on the line to this day. Like they know this hasn't come easy, and it still doesn't come easy. Yeah. I'm still out here grinding and getting it done. So my kids have watched me. Yeah. Dave Ramsey's still out here he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
So I think you have to leave that example. You have to not take adversity away from them. They have to push the barbell themselves. And when they do, just like all workouts, you feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
Let your kids go through some adversity, fight through it, be there with them, in the journey with them.
Yeah.
And then fight through, and they develop muscles.
Yeah. A couple things on that. It strikes me that not only have we removed grit and hard things from their life, that's true, but we've also redefined winning for them. This is also the generation that grew up getting a trophy for losing 6 straight soccer games. And so winning has been redefined for them. But here's some data, and I'm setting you up for leading this generation. We see in the data that the Gen Zers want to be in the office. When we were coming out of COVID, they were the generation who was saying, we want to be in the office. And it aligns with the data that also says they want to be coached. You are a guy who's built a coaching dynasty. You've helped so many people. I think what's weird is there's an opportunity for leaders to take advantage of the helicopter parenting. In other words, we've helicoptered so much that they crave instruction.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for leaders not to be frustrated by that, but to actually step in and instruct them. Yeah. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Oh, you're right on. I mean, you're right on. I just say amen. Like I have millennials and Gen Zers as kids. And our house has always been the hub. Like it would not be uncommon when my kids were in high school for us to have 80 kids over at our house. And Mr. B is my name in San Diego. So Mr. B, what about this? And Mr. B, what about that? And so I'm very hopeful with Gen Zers. Like these kids really seem to have their heads screwed on. And there's a lot of good stuff there. Millennials, the most maligned generation of all time. People might, you guys and whatever else. Your pants are too tight, your coffee's too strong. All that stuff. And but they're trying to figure out their way right now. One of the biggest challenges, I'm going to tell you right now, in this whole mix, we're about to have the single largest transfer of wealth in history. $80 trillion in asset is going to pass in the next 20 years. I think one of the biggest crises we're going to face is people inheriting tons of money and blowing it.
Yeah, not knowing what to do with it.
Not knowing what to do with it. We're going to see people who are tortured. And by the way, they say better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. Better to have always been broke than inherit a bunch of money and go broke.
Yeah.
That is, the guy said, hey, he made a small fortune in real estate. Why? He started with a big one. So you got to watch it. And so we're about to see that. That's all in this soup as well.
Yeah.
But I think they want coach and they want to improve. To really put a funny anecdote on what you said, I noticed the change when I saw all my kids' friends' favorite show was The Office.
Yeah.
They're going to school and everything is political correctness. You can't say this, you can't say that. They're very aware. They're aware of what they can and can't say. They mind their P's and Q's. But then they'd watch The Office, which is horribly unpolitically correct. And they'd, and all their kids. And they started sending this out because it was like, and so when the pendulum swings too far, the pendulum swings back.
Yeah.
These kids are going to be fine.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to a question right here.
Great, thanks. So my oldest son, 1 year active duty Marine, watched him graduate last year, which gave me a lot of hope, by the way, for this next generation of people who are raising a hand to serve. Oftentimes I think about what advice I would give to myself, my 20-year-old self. If you could just give my 20-year-old E2 United States Marine the best possible advice to set him up for success, what would that be?
I think, I had 2 great parents. My mom just passed here recently. I had 2 great parents who also weren't fully equipped for the job. Just like I'm and my bride are not fully equipped for the job. And that's where faith comes in. That's where growth comes in. That's where mentors come in. We're all born a half cup short. And, just to constantly seek to grow, to become the person you were designed to be. That is the single best advice. And I think that's the same way when he finds a mate, Lord willing. It's just, pursue that growth your whole life. We're all flawed. We're designed as human beings. And then we're all helpful. This man's helped me for years. And because he does things, I'm a stage guy. I know how to act on stage and speak on stage and present on stage. And Ken's a master of interviews. And so when I started a podcast, I went to someone who's a master at interviewing to ask for advice. And so we're all a half cup short. And so just keep growing and keep searching. And then you find other people. They got the other hand of the half you need at the minute. And if he does that when he's 20, by the time he's 60, you'll have had kids and grandkids and great-grandkids that are smashing people, you know.
I love that. We are all a half cup short, and we need to be filled up from a professional who knows how to handle our emotions and our thoughts, give us tools to be able to win. That's why I'm so glad this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I believe each of us is designed to play a unique role in life, but sometimes mental and emotional struggles can keep us from being the best version of ourselves. More people than ever are acknowledging that mental health directly impacts how we perform in our work and in our lives. But over a quarter of those people still say they avoid getting therapy due to the fear of being judged. Folks, listen to me. The world is better when you're healthy and happy. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, contact my friends at BetterHelp. BetterHelp is 100% online, so it's convenient for your schedule and it's affordable. They have a network of more than 30,000 licensed therapists with a wide range of specialties. And they've got over 10 years of experience matching people with just the right therapist for them. To get started, fill out a short online survey and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at any time for no extra cost. Remember, addressing mental health is not just important, it's essential for winning at work and in life. We're all better with help. So visit betterhelp.com/Ken to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Ken. Okay, let's go to another question back here.
Okay, Brian, I'm curious if there's a decision that you made early on that people really questioned you about and didn't understand that really played a role in your success.
Ooh,
Wow, she's lying in the weeds for me, isn't she?
that's a good one.
All right, and I'll tell you people who loved and cared for me. And the people who love and care for you the most will question decisions. You want them to question decisions. So when I first got into real estate, my dad's a lifelong house painter. And he goes, what are you doing? What are you doing? The only time you've been in a house like that was to paint the furniture and to paint the walls. What are you doing? You don't know anything about houses. And he was right. I didn't know anything about houses, but I learned. And so that was my dad. I was 19 years old, a broke immigrant. My dad's and I would call home once every 3 months. There's no Skype, there's no Zoom, and it costs a lot of money to make a phone call. And I get, that's one of my calls for the 3 months. And I'm all excited and I'm fired up and I'm enthusiastic and I believe I'm going to be good at this. And I have no money and I'm going to take a big bet on myself. And one of my most important influences says, what are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. And
let me ask you really quick there.
Yeah.
What can you recall that did to you emotionally?
I mean, initially it floored me. But the beautiful thing about being Irish is you kind of have your middle finger extended on your forehead every hour of the day. And so it's like, I'm going to show you.
All right, so let me ask this for our audience.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep you on track, but I got to ask, why is that an Irish thing, or is that you just poking fun? Is that really a thing?
It hits other cultures too. But the Irish are known for, here's the thing.
Why?
There's 5 million people. We're on an island. We were oppressed for 800 years. I mean, do you know why Irish dancing is with the arms down? Do you know what that is?
No.
So there was a thing called the penal laws. I'm explaining this to my kids last week when I was home in Ireland. So to be in polite society, the English passed these laws. So Catholics couldn't own a house, couldn't own a horse, couldn't own a firearm, they basically sharecroppers. And they couldn't dance above the waist. And that meant, polite society meant you did these Elizabethan dances.
Sure, yeah.
So it meant you couldn't be part of polite society. You would always be able, because you're white and they're white. And so you can't, there's no race, there's no religion, we're able to identify you're Catholic, so you can't dance. So what did the Irish do? They formed the most aggressive form of dancing in the history of mankind, where the arms are doing, right? And everybody loves river dance. Get the Irish, so lovely.
Right.
That's so amazing.
That's great.
And so we watch them, we're like,
I like that. That's rebellious innovation there.
yes. So we have a bit of that. So
Okay.
there is definitely the spirit of that. But I faced it. So I go on to become one of the top realtors in the United States. And
Let me ask another
go ahead,
question.
Sorry.
No, this is great. Because we left off with you saying, all right, I gave Dad the metaphorical middle finger, and then you go on and you've been wildly successful. How much did your dad's cynicism, for lack of a better word, drive you?
So here's the danger. It's okay to start you. It's not okay to keep you.
Exactly.
Because people who stay there will always self-destruct. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm actually being disrespectful to my father. I'm actually not, I really don't believe it. So you can just like somebody can get ticked off and start a goal. It's okay. That's okay. You just can't stay there. So you can have those negative forces be an initiator, like a spark plug, get the car going. But that you have to grow past that or you will self-sabotage. And I've seen that so many times in our coaching business where people get a great start, they have all kinds of talent, and they constantly loop themselves. Because, and by the way, what's often hard is they're trying to prove a dead relative wrong. Or they're trying to get approval from someone who's passed. Or a teacher that they met one time. A comment they met one time. Yeah. And so I had to grow past that. And I faced it again. So 9 years later, I'm one of the top agents in the country. And they would ask me at these conventions to go speak. And I would share what I was doing. And it was so different than what people were doing at the time. Because it was call, door knock, find them, fleece them, and forget them. Was the number one trainer in real estate. And I'm talking about, I got 7 biblical principles, love your customers, exceed their expectations, become their best friends. And I would share this stuff at these conventions, and there would literally be a line out the door. So this happened like 6 or 7 times. I go, there's something here. And then my bride came and saw me speak. She goes, you need to do this. So when I went to go start my coaching and training business, I get a phone call. What are you doing? You're one of the greatest realtors in America. You're fantastic. What do you know about speaking? I've heard speakers, they end up having 3 marriages and their family is a disaster and their kids are drunks and this and that. All of that's true. What are you doing? Now, I'll get to the end of the story. My dad's 95. My dad, at 64, my mother calls me and says, your dad's up on a ladder, 30-mile-an-hour winds, 30 degrees, and he's 64 years old. And I call that night. I go, Dad, you're done. You're fired. No more pain. You're done. I got you. I've been preparing for this day for a long time. My dad, my mom, lived the life of Riley the last 30 years and never worked another day in his life. About 3 years ago. So it takes a while. He was 91. And I went to visit him, and he goes, you know, Brian, I'm glad you never listened to a word I told you.
Oh, that's great. What did that mean to you as a son all those years later?
It meant a lot.
I'll bet it did.
And I said, I'm glad. I'm going to keep on not listening to you, Dad. That's my goal. But no, it was big, because that's from that generation, so on and so forth. Now, I had my mom, who was my biggest cheerleader.
Right.
So he'd be grumpy, and she'd like, go on and do it. You make a fortune,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I did have the positive stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something I have never told really anybody in a public setting. My dad passed me a compliment when I was 14. It was a compliment that affected me so negatively that it created in me an unhealthy drive. So I come from 6 kids as well, 5 boys and a girl. And my dad says to me when I'm 14, he goes, Brian, you're the one I don't have to worry about. He says, you're the one I don't have to worry about. And he meant it as a compliment. He could tell, you know your kids. You're going to be successful. You're going to be this. And I didn't know for years later that I wanted him to be one he worried about.
Yeah.
And so I stopped taking money. I became independent. I was at my mother's funeral and I'd forgotten about this. My sister did the eulogy and she goes, and there's Brian. She goes, and Mom would always tell Brian to go back to school because Brian had 2 businesses in high school and he was making more than our dad. And I had forgotten. My kids are like, what business were you in? And I go, shut up and do your classes. I don't remember. And I was mitching out on school. I wasn't going to school and I was working. Because I was to fulfill the prophecy, I'm the one he's not supposed to worry about. And I didn't know till years later that so like even as a kid, you take a compliment. We're just kids. My dad meant it as a compliment. I took it as, he doesn't worry about me. I'm on my own. That's how I took it. I'm on my own.
Did that make you riskier?
It made me something that is both celebrated and something that was almost my kryptonite, which is self-reliant. And so I've been champion all over the world. I go to seminars and thousands of people and people stand in line because I'm this self-determined, go-get-'em guy. But it was almost my kryptonite because I bring that to my faith. No, God, I got this. You don't have to worry about me, God. Beverly, you don't have to. I know we're married and we got a great life. You don't have to worry about me. And so you become self-reliant. I become the guy that helps everybody and never asks for help himself. The guy that could coach everybody but never get coached himself.
Has that made you lonely at times? And let me preface that because I've been in your home. You have a wonderful family. Your wife, she's an amazing woman.
Yeah.
Clearly bad judgment, but other than that, great lady.
Sucker for a sales pitch.
Yeah. But I wonder if you don't mind, has it made you lonely? Because if you're the guy that's self-reliant, you're also the guy that is always on.
Yeah.
And you're always helping everybody in every room. You got to be the guy. Has it been exhausting or lonely in any way?
So, a guy like me is not even going to accept the word lonely.
That's why I'm pressing you because I
it
actually
feels like a victim word, and I'm like, screw that, But
I think it has.
Oh, I'm sure.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
I think the word I'd accept is isolated.
Again, isolation leads to loneliness.
For sure. So no doubt. And the other dynamic is, I'm a public figure. I get a lot of acknowledgement where I go. People also are goofy around people with resources. So everybody thinks I'm Bill Gates. So when I'm in, like whether it's my own staff, whether it's a marketplace, people feel, oh, I'm safe. He's here. And a lot of times what they'll do is instead of like praying to God, they'll go, I'll pray to you. Can you help me?
Right.
And so, that's why they say it's lonely at the top. I think really there's less people there. And when you find each other, like here's the thing, I'm here with Dave Ramsey today. He and I are brothers from a different mother. He's the older brother for sure.
Right.
But I get a kick out of him. He kind of gets a kick out of me. So there is that. But it's definitely, like I said, it took me a long time to learn I'm not on my own. And by the way, I never have been. See, that's the truth. In my faith, I know this. I was only kidding myself. God was there all the time. I mean, in the biggest way possible. For example, my bride, Beverly. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's the hand of God. I can attest to that.
Police.
Yeah. Right.
Lou Holtz used to talk about his wife. I said, I used to pray for her. Now I pray to her. Okay. I better than I deserve. Come on.
Yeah.
The kids I got, better than I deserve. The people who were attracted to the mission, the staff that came to the company, well, where are these people coming from? Like these people are as fired up about what I'm doing as I am. So the truth is, and then God sent all kinds of these mentors. And because I wasn't able to accept it, like it was cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Okay, the way I could accept it was I'd listen to Zig Ziglar's cassette tapes. And I'd listen to Jim Rohn's cassette tapes and Brian Tracy's cassette tapes. And then I read their books and I was getting fed. And now all of a sudden I didn't feel alone at all. I would actually say this, all right, never even had this thought. This is cheaper than therapy. This is better than Deloney. Deloney didn't give me any therapy at all. It's probably the reason I formed a coaching company. Because I never probably felt I got the help I needed.
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. And I thought, man, if I could provide that for people.
You met others' needs based on a need that you wanted so desperately.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And I think that actually ties back to you wanted your dad to coach you.
Probably.
He said, I don't worry about you.
Yeah.
And it was a compliment.
Yeah, no,
But what you
definitely,
heard was,
definitely.
I want my dad's attention in the form of, we want that fatherly, scholarly.
Yeah.
I think that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think that I have goosebumps.
But then, it's interesting when I became successful, I remember one time my dad said, he said, you terrify me. He goes, you terrify me.
In what context?
He goes, my dad, they bought a house. Like they were engaged for 7 years. They wouldn't buy a house until they got married.
That's great.
That's our deep commitment to real estate in our family, okay? But they bought a house for £1,800, fully furnished with a motorbike. The guy just emigrated and went to Canada, knives and forks and the whole thing. And my mother knew, she said, if we move into a flat, an apartment, she goes, we'll stay in a flat. And it's truth, because they bought that house in 1957. They still own that house today. So they lived in the same house. My dad did the same job. He supported the same teams. He went and played his golf in the same course every weekend. I would take risks. I frightened him. The thing he was advising me against, it was his terror. Like I'd buy a new house. He's like, what are you doing? And yet he would have loved to buy a new house. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know it was his fear talking to me.
Yeah.
And so he used to say, you terrify me. And, I'm like, really? And now my mother came from a different place because she came from a place, girls are heard, not to be heard from, not done, not this. Her brother was an international soccer player and he was worshipped in the family and she wasn't. So she was behind the scenes. You go get him.
Yeah.
You go do it.
Yeah.
And so I had that going on. But yeah, there's no doubt, like as we're talking through, it's a great conversation. I formed a coaching company to do what I didn't get.
And I want to bring this full circle, not just for the real estate professionals that are watching because they love you, but for everybody. There's something to be learned here. If you're struggling with a why in your work, looking back into your story and what drives you has got a very personal connection.
Yeah. Your pain produces your purpose.
It does, and you're meeting a need that maybe you never had met. And you can really personalize that, whether you're selling a house or you're selling an HVAC system. Really, really good stuff. Okay, right here.
I want to talk about playing small. How did you combat that in your life and your path along your journey? Or the question for both of you.
What do you mean when you say playing small?
I mean, when things are scary, when there's an opportunity for something that feels too big, that could it be me? How could this be me? Why? How could I step into this?
Yeah. I'll let you go first on that one.
Well, I have a lot on that.
Yeah, I do.
I'm from a small island. And the philosophy in Ireland, Bono will say this story. When he came to America, and he goes, Americans drive by a house on the hill. And they go, I'm going to be that guy one day, and I'm going to own that house one day. And he says, in Ireland, they drive by, and they see that guy in the house, and they go, I'm going to get that sucker. So if someone was successful, it's because they'd screwed somebody over or worked the government over. So that was the pervasive mindset in the environment I grew up in. And then I'm a small person. My mother put me into school when I was 3. Not because I was gifted. I think I was probably pretty hyper. And she was like, I'm getting him out of the house. So I played ball. I won a national championship in high school and everything else. I was 16 years of age. My best friend thought I was 2 years older than I was. So I lied about my age my whole life. Because if people knew how young and small I was, they'd kill me, right? And Dublin was a very tough town growing up. And I actually became the enforcer. So when I played on my soccer team, I was the enforcer. I was the guy, the coach. Here was our coach. Imagine this, I'm playing soccer, and my coach would come on the sideline, Buffer, which is like announces to the world that I'm going to take somebody out, which means I'm going to get taken out first, by the way. Thank you for that bullhorn. So I was small, I was young, and I'm in an environment of fighting to start with. So I had that built into me. So I had to fight against every instinct in my body to not play small. I went to a seminar when I was in real estate, and I learned how to set a goal. His name was Lou Tice, and he was from the Pacific Institute, a brilliant man. If you ever have a chance to look him up. I later became a friend, spoke at our seminar. And Lou Tice taught me how to set goals. And I set 19 goals at a seminar. And I came home and shared those goals with my wife. And it was like biting into filet mignon the first time in your life. And you were growing up on Spam. And it's like, holy moly. I learned about setting goals. I learned about pursuing goals. I learned about achieving goals. And then everything it took and all the resources and things you had to learn and grow to do that. And I became a voracious goal setter for the rest of my life. Now I'm the guy that's taught more people goal setting than anybody in the world, where I've actually set down 4 million people in an environment, play soft, classical, Baroque style music to create this state of flow for people. But I did it because it's been so transformative in my own life. Now, even with that, I've had spells when it's been dry, and I sat there and there's a blank piece of paper and nothing's doing it for me. But that is how you play small. Don't play small. And then I'd say the second thing is associations. You really want to be an eagle, you gotta hang out with some eagles. And even if you're a little duckling, it doesn't matter. You get to hang out with an eagle and you go, oh, that's what an eagle does. And it does two things. On one hand, it makes you've met, how many famous people have you met? And you go, they're brilliant. They're ordinary.
Yeah, that's right.
And you go, I see where they're brilliant, but I see where they're common. And all of a sudden you go, hang on a second here. I can put my shoes on too. So setting goals, raising your associations, and then third would be getting a community of people who want to grow with you. Being on board with people who want to grow. Let's is one of the greatest words.
Oh,
let's.
So good.
Let's go climb this mountain. Let's go do a half marathon. Let's go build a business. Let's go, and so those are great things. So set some goals for sure. Get a community for sure.
It reminds me, I was 33, 34, and felt like broadcasting was the thing for me. And I'd never done it, never gone to school for it. And I had some people in my life that thought it was a little crazy. It was a little too late. And I'll never forget, I had been doing some stuff in Atlanta at the ESPN affiliate and got on the air by accident. And the program director found out about it, called me in his office, said, you can't do that anymore. And he said, listen, I don't know why you're doing this. Hanging out 3 days a week. He said, you don't have the talent. Somebody's got to tell you. You don't have the talent to make it in a top 10 radio market. And I was consumed with doubt in the days that followed. So I'm going to take you back to that. There's two things. When I feel small, I ask two questions. I'll give it to everybody. The first one is, do I believe that I can actually do this? This thing that I'm doubting, do I believe that I can do it? Even if nobody else does, do I believe? And then this is the second question and the most important. Is it worth going for it, even if I don't pull it off? And now there's two things that are happening there. One, you're doing the ultimate gut check. You got to silence everybody else, take all the feedback, and then at some point sit with yourself and go, I'm the one that wants to do this. Do I think I can do it? And then so that's the belief part. But that second part is, am I willing to be wrong? And I think every time you're threatened with what you're talking about is doubt. That's all you're talking about. Imposter syndrome is the new popular phrase.
Right.
Drives me nuts. By the way, number one, you're not an imposter. That means you're fake. And it's not a disease. And so I think that's what I would give you.
You've had to answer that over and over again, right?
Oh, yeah.
Same question.
That's the first time that I really had to confront doubt.
Right.
Because I was full of confidence prior to that.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Just didn't know.
Oh, I was a kid that always thought I could do whatever I wanted to do.
right.
So hope that helps you.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, you once said, if today I came to the U.S. with $92 in my pocket, I would still become a millionaire in 12 months. Now, I know you. But if somebody were to just see you saying that in that beautiful Irish brogue of yours, they might go, this guy's full of it. I know you, and you wouldn't say that if you didn't believe it. So let's put it to the test. So a lot of people watching don't know you. This is going to be on TikTok. Yeah.
For sure.
Right. But hey, to the cynic, they don't believe that the American dream is still alive. But let's be tactical. Pay off that statement. You came in today, $92 in 2025. What would you do and how would you do it in 12 months?
Find a need and fill a need. I think, first of all, when I talk about being a millionaire is a state of mind, not a state of account. So if I were broke, I'd be so out of my comfort zone that I'm getting right back in. It's my mindset. Second is, I did it before, I can do it again. So find a need, fill a need. The wild thing about today is the speed of the market, the speed of the marketing, and the availability of capital. Shocking. The size of the market today, I came to America in 1986. Look up video from 1986. There was some homely stuff. Ireland was a third world country. So when I came to America, I was like, wow. But there's still some homely stuff running around the place. You look at the size of the market today, how big the market is, how giant it is. Niches, for example, in this market are enormous. And so you find the niche, find the need, fill the need. So I would spend some time looking around at what people struggle with. What is something that's difficult that could be made easier? What is something that could make somebody's life more comfortable? Something that could be done quicker, something that could be done better, something where there's a gap in the market. These giant corporations, I'm telling you, I have a good-sized company myself. There's gaps. And the bigger the company, the greater the gap, okay? I told the story several times at lunch today, but it was like IBM held the rights to Microsoft, MS-DOS, and they let them walk because the CEO was like, who's ever going to have a personal computer on their desk? Go for it. Mr. Gates, you go for it. 10 years later, IBM was filing bankruptcy. They didn't. And Microsoft is the biggest company in the world. So find a need, fill a need. The next thing is find people who are in that space who are doing it well. Copy them. And then all I did, for example, I didn't invent anything with Buffini coaching. Everything I did existed in some form or another. I improved on it and put a package together. So, for example, here I am. I'm a successful realtor. I know that I have a system. There's coaching programs out there. All right, what does this guy do? Well, this guy, he has a coaching program, but they're realtors for realtors. I'm thinking, hang on. So they're a real estate agent showing homes and doing this and doing that, and then they're going to coach somebody on the side? Okay, like the idea of coaching. I want someone who's full-time. And they're going to be in my building, learning how to do what I teach them how to do. And we're great. So we're going to do coaching. All right, these guys, they do events. There's 3-day events. I don't like that. It's too long away from people's business. I'm going to do a 2-day event. Oh, there's a free half-day seminar is how they sell their wares. It's 4 hours, and they sell you for 4 hours. I go, I hate that. I like the format, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it in 2 hours and 15 minutes. And for 2 hours and 9 minutes, I'm going to make people laugh, learn, and I'm going to give them everything I have. And then I'm going to say, hey, if you want to come and find out what I got, I come into town in 30 days. So when I started my coaching business, the typical sales in a seminar was 8% of an audience. For 17 years on the road, I averaged 42%. Providing more value, giving them better information, and having them have a good time. And they'd go, man, I'd have paid money for this. So I found a need. So those things already existed. I did it better. I did it quicker. I did it more efficiently. Then we produced a better product. And then within a few years, now you're the brand. But that's find a need, fill a need. Find people who are doing it. Put your own spin on it, and then do this.
Yeah.
Voraciously execute.
Love that.
Voraciously execute.
Yeah, I love that. That's a big part of it. I was thinking while you were saying that, compete. You just competed. I think sometimes we forget that winning in your work is a competition. It's almost like a lot of people are competition averse in today's world.
Yeah.
But man, I don't care whether you are competing or not, everybody else is. And there's a scoreboard. And I think you were really aware of that.
Well, you're onto something there. But see, there's an undertone there that's never talked. Nobody talks about losing. Yeah. And nobody will use the word loser.
Yeah.
It's a very derogatory term in our culture today.
Oh, yeah.
But are there people who are winning and there are people who are losing?
Yeah.
Are there people who've ever gone to the Pine Box? That guy was a loser. Lou Holtz would say he has to hire people to carry his coffin.
Right.
We're afraid to say those things because it sounds so judgmental and so condemning.
Right.
The bottom line is there's people who are losing and there's people who are winning. So here's what I'm going to say. In the next 12 months, I don't give a frosty rip what the market is or what the tariffs are or what anything's going on. It has very little to do with my focus and my attention. Here's what I'm going to go do.
All right.
And it has very little to, all those other things. They're all, I was actually laughing because recently the Houthis are back in the news, right? I remember I was doing an event in Dallas, Texas, and I'm doing a meet and greet line. And this woman walks up to me. She's great. She's big-haired, looks the part, the whole thing. Typical Texas realtor, right? High heels, big hair. She walks up to me and she goes, Brian. She goes, I'm just really concerned about something right now. I said, what's that? Pirates. Pirates. They're stealing our ships. I go, well, that's good. I go, what does that got to do with you? Are you do you have a sailing fleet or something?
You selling houseboats?
Exactly. Yeah. What's up with you? I'm American and I'm offended. I said, okay, I get it. What has that got to do with your goals? What has that got to do with your family? What's it got to do with you not, by the way, you're not willing to do some of the basic activities to be successful? And I've thought about that many times because we all have pirates.
Yeah.
Might be Netflix, might be our sports team, might be InstaSnap, okay? Or whatever else is going on.
Yeah.
We all have pirates, and we get distracted by. You know why? Because it's easier to be distracted than pay the price to be successful.
I think that's the issue. It gives our brains and our emotions a chance to take a break.
Sure.
But the people that are winning are the ones that just never take a break. They're just chopping down trees.
Or short breaks. Like, I'll watch Netflix.
Yeah.
I just won't watch 8 programs.
Well, you're not watching at 2 p.m.
No.
Right? I mean,
No.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, let's go here.
I want to go back to relationships a little bit. Brian, you've been talking about the value of relationships that bring you up. How intentional, or what point do you look at your relationships and say, you know what, this person or this group I'm in is no longer serving me, and you decide to let relationships go? And how intentional are you with that? If you wouldn't mind maybe talking through that a little bit, I would love to hear that, because I'm in some networking groups and different things where we've had to make some decisions to just remove some people or spending less time with them in your life.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a multi-layered question. So if they're in a networking group, I got a quick hook. That's not hard. Okay, if it's on a business level, I got a quick hook. If they're working for me, I've historically kept people a lot longer than I should have. But once they reach a certain point, if they're toxic to their colleagues, quick hook. Some people have developed a quick hook with the very close relationships in their life, and that's real dangerous. And so the other part of it is I have a faith tradition that says I got to love your enemies is what I was called to, not just love the lovable ones. And I fail at that every day. But I will say this. I view my emotional and mental and spiritual well-being, and I guard it. And I'm very, very careful not to expose that to people who are going to denigrate it or take from it. It's hard enough. You know, I talked to the great Dr. John Deloney today, and he's like, hey, most of us got a civil war going on inside. Well, here's the thing. I don't want to call reinforcements for the enemy. I've already got a battle going on inside myself. Now I'm going to call reinforcements. And it's we're trying to please people is normally the great sin. And we're trying to please people who, by the way, can't be pleased, who can't be happy. And we think we're going to make them happy or solve them, or we want to be thought of a certain way. And you eventually have to get to a point, and you got to go to the circus a few times for this one, where not that you don't give a rip. But I'll say this. I have become as unattached to praise as I have criticism. If someone, I think gratitude is a very important thing, and I'm very appreciative of all the gratitude I receive, and I receive more than my fair share in life if I end it today. And I receive wonderful letters and notes and so on and so forth. And I'm very happy for the person who wrote the note, because they just exercised a fantastic thing in their life, which is gratitude. And I think it's very important for them to have done it. But I'm telling you, I have the same energy towards, hey, Brian, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Brian, you are the greatest jerk in the world. And that allows me to not find my identity in what I'm doing. Oh, I changed that person's life. No, we created a system and coaches and programs and try to inspire them and help them. And the Lord changed their lives and chose to use us. But I think, you have to be very careful.
I've gotten to the point where this is shocking for me. But people don't think about me as much as I think they do. And I really have gotten peace over that. And so that would be the litmus test for me. If it's not working and you know it's not working, it's not adding value to you, they don't care as much as you think they care that you're walking away. I just think we just don't realize how little people are busy in their own deal. And I think, man, I'm at that point too, where if there's not sparks in a good way.
Well, when your values are clear, your decisions are easy.
That's right.
I think professionally, I have a very quick hook. Personally, I have a very slow hook. I have someone very close to me in my life who is diametrically opposed to everything I think. Spiritually, societally, every ounce of every conversation. And devout communist.
Wow.
Who's a member of my family. Who I love dearly. And the 10 messages I get a week, I just don't interact with. And then there's the 11th one is a sweet one. I'll interact with that.
So no hook, but a boundary.
Yeah. And I've learned to love unconditionally that.
Yeah.
And okay, I got to take hits. Fine. It's important enough to me.
Yeah.
Values are clear, decisions are easy. Now the thing is, if it affects me, where you get to go to work is, why does that affect me? Why does it affect me? If someone who believes in communism, for example, which is a really wicked state of affairs that's destroyed the world, why do I need to defend communism? Why do I need to be right is the issue. Why do I need to prove my philosophy, my religion, my faith, my way of raising my kids, No. I mean, here's the thing. We homeschool. I married an African-American woman in 1990. 2% of marriages at the time were interracial. Of those, 2% were where the man was white and the woman was black. I remember coming down south, being in Alabama, and where the waiter would take my order and not take my wife's. So very early on, I figured out, I'm not doing this for people pleasing. Okay? And also not an ounce of, and I married a phenomenal, race is not even a conversation in our home, except when it comes to humor. Just choose not to participate in it. And so, you make those decisions. We homeschooled. When we homeschooled, I didn't fit into any, when I tell people we homeschooled, they go, oh yeah, homeschool community loves me. The homeschool community hated us. I was a guy flying around in a jet. We were with people in San Diego in homeschooling. They were baking their own bread and making their own dresses. They looked like the Amish community. My family's doing seminars over the world and coming in and this and that. My family's like, what are you doing? You're going to destroy your kids. They'll never play sports. Okay, so I bought a school so they can play sports. We figured that out.
Okay.
Won a state championship.
Sure. Wow.
I remember one of my favorite, this is off the book, one of my favorite memories of all time, because my son was a really good athlete, played football at SMU. And we're playing against this team in the state semifinal. It's 8-man football, because that's all we could get together with the homeschoolers. And this guy's screaming at his team in the locker room next door, and he goes, for God's sake, they're homeschoolers. They're whipping you. They don't even get to go outside. And I'm like, whatever I paid for this school was just worth it. Right
every
there.
penny.
So, you have to, you got to follow the path of your own convictions. You need to get input. I've made mistakes and people go, yeah, you're off the bait. But, when your values are clear, decisions are easy.
I would go so far as to say I'd be fine if we retired the phrase millionaire mindset.
Yeah.
And here's why.
Yeah.
After you wrote your best-selling book, The Immigrant Edge, and I've heard you speak on it, I think it's the immigrant mindset. And I don't think I'm not trying to Americanize this.
Yeah.
Here's some data that I think I want to kind of resolve this idea around. Immigrants make up 14% of the U.S. population, but they own around a fifth of U.S. businesses. This is according to the Small Business Administration. In 2023, 40% of entrepreneurs were either immigrants or children of immigrants, in line with data released by the Small Business Administration as well. And then the American Immigration Council reported in 2023 that 44.8% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children. So I'm not popping off when I say we ought to probably retire the millionaire mindset. Yeah. I think it's an immigrant mindset. Dare I say the title of your best-selling book, The Immigrant Edge. So here's the question based on that data. What do they have? And how does one who isn't an immigrant or the child of an immigrant, a person who feels a little stuck but longs to do something, what do they have? This data is absolutely undeniable. There's something special there.
And I'll say something controversial, which is, because I'm asked all the time, I wrote this best-selling book on Immigrant Edge, and I'm asked all about immigration all the time. Everywhere I go, all the media people, what about immigration? And I'll just say this, is if you create an environment for immigrants to come in and receive instead of give, if they're coming to take instead of contribute, you've taken away the very essence of what makes them great. So that society has to, there's issues there, and there's, what does a great society do and offer grace to people and so on and so forth. But, I've seen it. I've seen it in Ireland. We had when Ireland, because we're a nation of immigrants who sent our people overseas forever, when we started doing well, people started coming to Ireland. So, for example, when after the Great Recession, the Irish had to do what's called an austerity plan. cut back on all their expenses. 450,000 Eastern Europeans left the country because they were just on the welfare. And as soon as they stopped getting the welfare benefits, they went home. And this is proven. Like, that's documented. 450,000 people in a country of 5 million is astounding. So that's the proof. So people have to come and contribute. So I want to lay that out there to start with. I have 6 children who have the immigrant mindset and who are all little Yankees with their California accents who give Dad a hard time when he says H and garage and things like that. So, but they were raised with it and they have it. And they brought it, each one had brought it to their own disciplines. And they were raised as kids who flew in private jets to vacations and this and that and the other and lived in big houses. And this, so it doesn't even matter. They didn't get soft because of it. So when I say that the 7 things, I'll do my best to remember the principles of the book. I wrote the book 8 years ago.
And you don't even
but
have
I'll
to
give
go
it to
all
you.
7.
But voracious openness to learn was number 1.
Yeah.
Voracious openness to learn was number 1. And that's because here's the thing. When you come to America, like I'm an English speaker. When I came to America, I didn't know what a Snickers was. You know what I mean?
Oh, so I'm glad we gave you that.
Yeah, right. I know. I mean, there's so much. Like, when I landed in California, I thought I'd landed on the moon.
Right.
And the way people talked and the way they interacted and what they did, you know? And you have to, so you order a ham sandwich in Ireland, you get 2 pieces of bread and a piece of meat that you could read the newspaper through. In 1986, that's what a ham sandwich was. I go to a store in America and they go, I'd like a ham sandwich. Would you like everything on it? You mean the bread and the meat? Like, would you like everything on it? What is everything? And then along comes this thing, you know, that looks like an anaconda. Okay, I guess that's you have to learn everything. So immigrants that become successful open themselves up. I got to learn everything. And they tend to stay that way their whole life. Like, I'm excited to learn. I'm here today learning from you how to do an interview, and I've done 7 years of podcasting, and I'm watching you conduct an interview, and I'm learning while I'm here. It's great. You're good at what you do.
Oh, thank you.
So that voracious openness to learn is a big deal. A willingness to delay gratification, that's a big one. They delayed gratification, you know, when you leave home. Like, here's the thing, I just buried my mom. And everyone loves the immigrant story. Let me tell you, there's parts of the immigrant story sucks. You know, when my mom got sick, I'm 7,000 miles away with big obligations. And I'm getting home as often as I can. But I'm not there day to day to be there for her the way I would have desired. She wanted to live in America, not live in America. She wanted to live in Ireland. I left, she didn't. And it's just those kinds of things. And so when you leave your country and leave your people, you paid a price. And you made a sacrifice, and then you learn how to make sacrifices on an ongoing basis. So delaying gratification is a big thing. I would say gratitude is a key thing. If you truly meet people who are first-generation immigrants who've been here a long time, done well, they're so thankful for the country. They're so thankful to the people. They came from places, you know, I've done seminars in places where people, like, they're not allowed to conduct business. You know, where the government is so intrusive. I was just in Argentina. They've had 60% inflation for the last 10 years. So when they hear Americans going, oh, we had 5% last year and we're ready to jump ship, they're like, what are you talking about? So they have this expression of gratitude. And so that, you know, here's the key in modern parlance, you can't communicate gratitude and feel entitlement at the same time. So it eliminates entitlement. So if you have kids and family, whatever else, like, eliminate. Like, here's the thing, my kids are all grown, they have families around. We're at a restaurant together last week. We're finished the meal, waiter gets a big old tip. What do you say, kids? Thank you. I mean, I'm relentless about it. Never, to their grave, they know that's coming. And then I would say the last piece of the puzzle is you keep perspective because you never forget where you come from.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it happens. It happens. You know, the cheese and crackers weren't good on the plane today. You know, it's easy to get that. As opposed to, I'm on an airplane. Like, one of the things I was with a guy. We're coming back from Hawaii, sitting in first class. The guy's sitting next to me, and the Wi-Fi on the plane wasn't working. And he is going ape bananas about the Wi-Fi working. And he's giving the flight attendant a hard time. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do an intervention without him knowing he's being intervened upon. And I go, dude, do you know where we are right now? We are in first class. We're getting a nice meal. We are in a tin box flying above the ocean for 2,500 miles. Your grandparents would never have dreamed they'd been in this. You know what? maybe God wants you to have 5 hours where you read, relax, or have a rest. I don't know if he appreciated it or not, but I really enjoyed delivering those lines.
Yes, laid it on him. I love it. You've mentioned your kids multiple times, and I do think it is worth calling out that they grew up while you were experiencing tremendous success. And I think there's probably a lot of parents that are watching and listening right now, and they have a fear, that we all kind of do when we first get, you start being a parent, and you realize, okay, it's just keeping them alive at first, and then you go, I want them to be good people.
Yeah.
Again, I'm blessed to know you, your wife, met several of your kids. I know several people who work with you. So I can say with testimony that you've raised 6 phenomenal human beings. They're not entitled, and yet they grew up in tremendous wealth and blessing. Just give us a couple things, or maybe just one thing that would encourage parents raising kids in 2025 with the technology the way it is, the comparison. There's a lot of junk that you didn't have to deal with as a father, and yet you've done it well. How do you win with your kids and win in your professional life?
All right. So it's very important that I say what I'm about to say. Because if I sit here and take credit for all this stuff, I am just a lying sack of dog, dude.
Right.
Okay? I am who I am, and I have the marriage and family I have today because I gave my life to Christ. And I became a committed believer and a student of the Bible and a committed guy that his faith would be a manifestation of everything he did. And without saying that, I'm stealing and lying.
Mm-hmm.
Now a lot of hard work and grind and whatever else, but my marriage is based on that. I fell in love with my wife's spirit, not her color. And she still has the same spirit and the same color, man. But we have a spectacular relationship. But we are unified as a team because we have a unifying dynamic between us. Our kids, I'll say this about my kids. None of my kids want to follow me in the business. Dad casts a huge shadow, personality, and they've seen the price Dad's paid. Okay, it's been hardcore. And they're all driven in their own way, and they pay their own prices in their own way. And I think, my older kids, they're pretty dynamic in what they do, and they're world leaders and so on and so forth. But they pay a different price. They want to pay their own price, not my price. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
But I really want to say it without proselytizing people. And we could have talked for an hour, and I wouldn't want to say nothing about it. But I just don't want people to think I got there by myself, because I didn't. And, I my faith in God, and I married a great woman, and we became a team. And the thing about our kids, they know we are together. And the thing about my kids, they know I love my wife more than I love them. And they know mom comes first. Yep. And they know that's where it's at. Now for her, there's the 6 kids, the 3 grandkids, the 7 horses, there's a dog, and then I come next, but that's okay.
Right.
That's part of the
deal. As
deal.
it should be.
But it's voracious, and our kids know that. And so, that became the foundation. I needed that game plan.
Yeah.
And it's all there.
How did you shield them, though, from entitlement when they had so much? And they're all very successful, too. So, and I know it's impossible to just pick one, but I want you to encourage parents of young kids. What's something that you look back on and you go,
Gratitude.
You taught them gratitude?
I'm telling you, everything else is a ridiculously distant second. And if I was to say one thing about the culture, is the lack of gratitude. Is the lack of gratitude expressed. And by the way, the lack of expression of gratitude is the same as ingratitude. Here's the thing. Do this. Go to a restaurant tonight and watch people sit there while the server brings a plate in front of them and they say nothing. Watch kids who say nothing. The parents say nothing. The kids say nothing. In every interaction. People who are dealing with the public today, flight attendants, people on airlines, people who have to deal with consumers today, it's not so much fun. And the number one reason for it is there is a dearth of the expression of gratitude. And I believe if you will champion and challenge a kid's heart, I'll say this, my kids have married 3 great spouses. The gratitude thing is a shock to all of them. And they're great people from great families. But they're like, it's not natural. And they're learning it in their 20s. Yeah. And they come on our program and they go, I like the Buffini program. It's pretty good. You fly well, you eat well, you know, a lot of good things. Oh, I'm telling you, if I had one thing, if I had faith as a foundation and then gratitude as a commitment. And gratitude is not just, sit in a lotus position and, all that type of stuff. I'm talking about committed all the time. And if you start the day with that, my wife and I start our prayers in the morning with gratitude, not with the list and the things that are burdening us. We start with gratitude. And it starts there. Gratitude changes everything. Everything. And I believe it's the biggest dynamic with children.
I love that. You talked about your mom and your dad, and you just buried her. She's in heaven watching. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you at this season of your life, having just walked through that, I know you're still grieving, the power of a mom through the example of your mom. What did your mom mean to you, and how did she impact you, the person you are today? And what can we learn from that?
There's a scene in Shawshank Redemption when Andy Dufresne escapes and Red's kind of digging in the graveyard. And he has a soliloquy going with that great voice, And he talks about, when I think of Andy Dufresne driving in his car with the sun on his face. And that part of you that feels that sense of joy that they're gone is also that part of you that knew it was a sin to lock them up in the first place. But it doesn't mean that your world's not drab or more dreary because of they're gone. My mother was my champion. She championed me. She told me throughout my life, you can do it, Bryony. And so that's why when I formed a podcast, she gives the Irish blessing at the end of it. And people got to experience that little Irish blessing. My bride is so wise, it's funny. And she knows her place in the world, and she knows who she is and what she means to me. And she says to me, where's that gap going to get filled? Because even until my mom's dying day, she was such a soldier in how she went. At 94 years of age, totally blind, having hallucinations, fighting for her life. How she chose to die was so freaking inspirational. And I'm like, my brother and I said, are we ever going to stop learning from this woman? So what I will say is there was nothing left unsaid with me and my mom. And I loved every bit of it. And because I know her forwarding address, I'm at peace. But I will say this, in my life, there's a gap. And I'm going to take some time. I'm not doing this more. But there's a gap.
Yeah.
There's a gap in my soul. There's a gap in my heart. There's a gap in my mind. There's a gap in my nurture of where I get authentic support. And that's gone. And I'm going to have to figure that out. As it's a human condition, everybody has.
What was the last champion thing she said to you or did?
Now, you got to understand, I'm my mother, so we're feisty little fiery people. And I had flown home. She went blind. She started having hallucinations. It was a bad deal. And so I got on a plane. I was in Hawaii, and they said, hey, she's in this hospital, and it was not what I was going to put up with. And I was in Hawaii. I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. Had it all planned out. My bride, 2 days later, I'm boom on a plane. I go 11 hours, and I get to Dublin and kind of rectify the situation. Got her on some meds. Got her calmed down. But I knew we were in the last season here. And I've had this group in Argentina that's been they're 7 years trying to get me to go there. And they've done everything. And they're fabulous people. And every one of their people have taken our training programs multiple times. And they're fanatics. And I kept telling them, no. And they finally said, okay, it's their 20-year anniversary. I'm going to go. Me and John Maxwell. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my mom. And I'm like, I know if I go to Argentina, there's a chance she dies while I'm gone. I'm not going to be there for her. And I'm talking to her and I said, Mom, and she how are you doing? She goes, I'm much better, Brian. She goes, I hear you're going to Argentina. I said, I can't do that. I'm going to be here for you. And she turns to me and she says, no, she's blind. She's really not doing well. She turns to me, she goes, you go to Argentina and you sell them everything you have.
That is so awesome.
No, I wasn't selling anything, but I went down to Argentina.
Yeah.
And that was the last. After that, there was one exchange on a Zoom where she kind of waved. But that was the last thing she said to me.
Yeah.
Go to Argentina. I mean, most fighting words. What was the final words of your mother? Go to Argentina and sell them everything you have. I live with that for a while.
Your business is known for its effectiveness at coaching people. The average salary of a Buffini coached client is 10x the national average. You're not going to get to coach everybody, obviously, that you won't coach anybody, probably, that's listening and watching here. So I really wanted to say, all right, give them the tool belt to win. What are some skill sets, some mindsets? We've talked about a lot of them, but what haven't you shared that they need to know? Because you figured it out. All the things we've talked about today has really led to understanding what goes behind all of that coaching and all of that effectiveness. It clearly works. The data doesn't lie. Mm-hmm. But if we could do it in shorthand, what's that tool belt? You said, okay, if you've got this, this, and this to win in 2025, no matter what the industry is, what would you say those are?
So a combination of we've talked a lot about the personal tools.
Right.
And then you need some physical tools.
Yeah.
So we know ambition and goals and all those kinds of things. Personal growth, that's on the personal side. And that's the biggest part.
Right.
But you do need tools. I mean, what we did, we developed a system that was designed to build relationships. And we have all the technology in the world. And, we're launching this new AI program. And AI is some fascinating things it does and some ridiculous things it does. And there's things it doesn't do. But I would say you need to have a system that builds relationships is very important. And then routines that go with that. So daily disciplines. It's like, our company is one of the largest personal note providers in the world. So why? Because I heard George Bush Sr. in an interview going, I write 10 personal notes every day. So I started doing that. And I saw its efficacy in the marketplace. So then I started teaching on it and then providing the notes. And we give people 50 notes a month, which is 22 days a month, 2.5 notes a day. And you would think we were asking people to scale Kilimanjaro. And we have people listening to this thing today that pay every month. And they'll quit our program to say, I'm not using the notes. And there's all kinds of stuff that comes with it. I'm not using the notes. I'm going to save the money. It's like, okay, I'm not going to take the cure. How about you try to do it for one day? Could you do it for one day? Okay, that's the start. I tell people I became a millionaire writing personal notes. The first thing. Okay, I was here with Dave Ramsey today. Him and Sharon they sent flowers for my mom's wedding, right? And I sat down, and I just pulled out of my pocket, and I gave him a personal note I wrote, and he goes, and he says to me, "Of course."
Yeah, right.
And I didn't think anything of it until he said it, because it's what I do. Here's an example. It's like routines. For me, having a personal standard. In our business, we have a personal standard. Like, okay, I'm going to call this number of clients. I'm going to write this many notes. I'm going to do this many pop-bys, we call them. I'm going to do these activities, and I'm going to be disciplined about it. And I people tell me all the time, I don't have time. And I just started rephrasing it and saying, okay, I'd like you to tell me the truth going forward. I'd like you to say the following phrase: it's not a priority. So anytime from this point on, somebody says to you, I don't have time, just have them say, can you just say what's true? It's not a priority. I just don't have time to spend time with my kids. Great. Why don't you say what's honest? It's just not a priority. I don't have time to balance my checkbook. Just say it. Because everybody gets 7/24. It's the most fair thing in the world is time on the day-by-day basis. And so a personal business standard and activities that I'm going to do every day to advance my business. I'm doing all this personal growth stuff. It's got to show. If I just do personal growth and don't do the work, then I'm just a lula. Then I'm just going from seminar to seminar to get hyped up because I want to feel a certain way. I get hyped up and fired up so I can go do this stuff. And I do this stuff so I can go be a blessing to people by how I serve them. You can be the greatest, in real estate, you can be the greatest realtor in the world. But if you only have 2 clients a year, who cares? Why don't you go find 50 to take care of and be fantastic? It's good for those 48 extra families just got blessed because you did the work to go find them. But have a standard to do it. And so I think personal growth is great. It's got to be matched up with the action. You put them both together, you get success.
Well, reminder, folks, the entire reason we do this show is for you to learn alongside of me, taking notes like this audience is, like I am, to understand the power of a conversation, that just one question could essentially reveal something that changes your life. And so as I challenge you on every show, I took away so much. But the one thing that I'm going to put into practice this week is the inspiration of your mother. What was her name?
Therese Buffini.
Therese. Everybody needs a champion. You need that cheerleader, whatever word you want to use. But we cannot give what we do not have. And we're talking about high performers that are engaged in this room and watching and listening to this show. And we need to find that person who is that cheerleader, who champions us, because it's a lonely slog out there on the journey to success. You know it, and I know it. So find that person if you don't have it, because it will absolutely change your life. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to let us know by liking and subscribing. Also, if you'd like to join us in the future in studio for a live recording, check out the link in our show notes for up-to-the-date info on guests, dates, and opportunities. Well, this was a great conversation. It was so much to take away. Brian, you've been a friend. You've been so good to me. You've been a cheerleader to me. You've been so kind to me. You've platformed me. You've been a guest on the show. And every time I'm with you, I'm better for it. I know these people are as well. So all my friends in here, let's thank Brian Buffini for hanging out with us today. That was great. So good. Really good.